Hi guys, welcome back to the channel with my good friend Dr. Mark Bull here today, helping us go through a little bit more specifics on the movement of the body. Today we're going to be talking about loading the backswing and some misconceptions, also some great ways that you can actually feel a difference when you're loaded versus, I would say, just in a position versus in a loaded position ready to produce energy. So if you want to take us through sort of some of the tendencies that we see when it comes to top of backswing and when people get a little bit mismatched or in a position where they're not able to produce force into the club.
Fantastic. I mean, thank you, Ty. First of all, it's always great to spend time in CU. So I think almost in context, perhaps, is a nice place to start with this. I think the words you use there are wonderful, by the way. The idea that we load into backswing, a very common definition that probably you and I were exposed to maybe in our kind of early days, the idea of weight transfer.
You're right.
Which can be very ambiguous, very disruptive, very unhelpful for many people. We look more anatomically how we move in the golf swing. A much more precise definition around is more how we load joints. So there's a tremendous difference in moving or transferring weight, which really means what to many people, to actually how we load joints in backswing. So in essence, when we look at how we load joints in backswing, there's kind of three main joints we load. And again, this is kind of for the right-handed players. So for left-handed players, simply invert this. Very much the kind of right heel, the right hip, and the right shoulder. So trail foot, trail hip, and trail shoulder. So if you move into backswing, for example, as we start to move through backswing, how well can we load into that trail foot and ankle? Why the ankle is the densest part of the foot, is where the center of gravity goes. There's many reasons why the heel is actually connected to actually glute stimulation. So if often people go, that lovely phrase, my glutes are inactive, which is a whole different discussion. It actually connects back to heel connection in many ways. Then the trail hip in particular, and in that trail shoulder. So little kind of playful ways that maybe you and I can encourage people to play with is as they move through backswing, how well can they kind of push into that kind of trail heel and actually then lengthen up through that trail hip, can actually then get wonderful pressure into the kind of foot and ankle and hip joint. And also then just being mindful of that trail shoulder. Another reference I like to give people is whatever space they have between the ear and the top of the shoulder, for your viewers that are more aware of anatomy, the AC joint to be very precise, whatever length you have here, can you keep that length the same through backswing? Versus? You got it. So well often you get very short, the kind of shoulder blade pops up. That's a form of disconnection. So those three connecting points can we kind of push into the heel, lengthen up through the hip joint as we keep that shoulder down. It can be a very playful way and a very anatomical way of how we load joints rather than, say, for example, move weight.
100%. And then, so tendencies, like if I'm in there going through the motion. So one thing I always think it's interesting when someone gets up to the top of backswing and I say, where do you feel it? And sometimes they say, oh, I feel it actually in my lower back, right? So that could be usually like dependent on where they're loaded, maybe in the foot. If they're going into the toe and then they're trying to turn or trying to get to the top of backswing, that could be a factor in where that energy, or like you said, glute activation would be, right?
For sure.
Okay.
I mean, keeping it very local to that, because there's many reasons why someone could experience low back pain.
Yeah.
What part of the foot you push through will influence how all of the segments move. So someone pushes, say, from the little toe, the inside of the ankle in some ways, or heel, excuse me, sorry, will then very much change and influence how the knee, the pelvis, the spine, the hand moves. So in that very playful way, you can start to explore that. If I push from the little toe, what do I experience then, just say through the spine, for example? But if I then push more from the inside of the heel, how does that connect and enter my hip? So in that very kind of individual playful way, just be mindful what part of the foot you push through and from will then influence how all of the segments move. Yeah,
and even just doing that, like I did pinky toe on my trail leg and tried to extend my leg slightly, I felt it almost here, and then when I did more heel and extension, I felt it instantly quite a bit more back there, and it took a lot of stress out of sort of my obliques when I was doing that.
Fantastic, which is why I think it's just a nicer, cleaner, playful way for your viewers in particular. How do we load the joints rather than how do we transfer weight?
Yes, yeah.
Which is a very, at best, a very sticky subject to explore.
100%. And it's one of those, I think it's an interesting thing because you could see someone move into a similar look, but have quite a bit different, I would say, load or activation where, you'd see one guy do it and maybe they could hit it 100 yards. You see the next guy do it, looks similar. They have twice as much energy in the same looking position. So making sure you're aware of where you're feeling it, where you get the most, efficient movement from, and then how we can get that glute loaded up so we can produce some energy in the transition.